D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you on a beautiful Tuesday in Nashville, Tennessee. We hope you are all having a wonderful Tuesday as well. And gentlemen, there is a term that is misused quite a bit in the world of journalism. And that term is breaking one's silence. So-and-so breaks their silence about insert controversy here. We have a rare, genuine breaking of silence today because Mike Vrabel finally addressed the elephant in the room. The Diana Rossini photo published in the New York Post 2 weeks ago today. We've been waiting to hear from Mike Vrabel. He did address the situation before a news conference earlier today. Here was part of his statement.
With that being said, I've had some difficult conversations with people that I care about, with my family, the organization, the coaches, the players. Those have been positive and productive. We believe in order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me. That starts with me. We never want our actions to negatively affect the team. We never want to be the cause of a distraction. And those are comments and questions that I've answered for the team and with the team. We'll keep those private and, to ourselves. I care deeply about this football team, and I'm excited to coach them. I also know that I'm going to attack each day with humility and focus. And what I can promise you is that my family, this organization, the team, the staff, the coaches, everybody, our fans, most importantly, will get the best version of me going forward. And that's what I know, and I'm excited to do that. But I wanted to just address this and thank you for your patience in dealing with the private and personal matter.
So,
thank
you. Case closed, right?
No, it's really not.
I'm being facetious.
No, we said this yesterday. Whether he answers the question or not, it still will be a story moving forward. And the story is he didn't answer the question. He didn't do anything. He just basically, he didn't admit to anything. I didn't expect him to, but it would have been sort of kind of nice seeming someone had to step away from their job or possibly was forced to leave their job. And even though what you allegedly have done or been a part of, because it takes two to tango here, allegedly what you've been a part of is deemed detrimental to the team, because once it becomes public and it becomes a distraction, that is detrimental to the team. He understood that. Robert Kraft understands that. The league understands that, but they're not going to do anything. They're just going to let it be. Status quo, move on. It's about football and let it go. All the while, again, I don't feel sorry for, but one other person had to step away from their job, and he continues to keep his job, and people will not talk about this. They'll sort of push it to the side and continue to move. Again, he's just as much at fault with this than she is. So that's the way I see it.
So, Willie, did he just admit it without admitting it?
Well, I feel like his approach was to not address it, but at the same time, he also had every opportunity to say, this is a farce.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I originally said, two friends getting together, but he did not do that. So his version implied that he made some mistakes. And the mistakes in his mind are a personal matter and not to be delved out in a press conference. But he, in effect, admitted that his conduct was not on the up and up. And he had to talk to his team about it. He had to talk to his family about it. So that was his way of saying, I messed up.
Don't do dumb that hurt the team.
But, I mean, do you agree? I mean,
No,
that was his
agree
way
with you.
of maneuvering around actually getting into the specifics, and everybody wants the dirt. Everybody wants details. He's not giving that up, which I don't blame him for that. I think it stopped short of him really coming out and saying, I messed up. He didn't say that, but he implied that.
So, as I understand it, he did not answer questions at the podium, but following the news conference, he did answer questions off camera about the situation. Here are some of his answers, courtesy of masslive.com. On Rossini resigning from her position at The Athletic, quote, I respect and I appreciate every single question, but I'm not going to be able to comment on anything as it relates to that. I appreciate your job and what you guys have to do, but I have to make my comments and what I answer about our football team. He also was asked a question on calling the initial implications laughable in his statement to the New York Post, and if that's still the way he feels.
Yes.
That's the question.
So Mass Live says, on calling the initial implications laughable, Vrabel's word, in his statement to the New York Post, and if that's still the way he feels. Quote, I appreciate the question. I'm going to focus on our football team. I think I've addressed what I feel like was important. So focusing on our football team and the importance of teaching these guys, bringing a new team together, 13 new players, end quote.
See, that to me, that's the question that he should be forced to answer. Whether it's in the media, that would be nice, and the media should probably keep asking the question until he gives a better answer than that. But I would think internally.
Yeah.
I think you can argue that Diana Rossini is out of a job at The Athletic because she came forth with a story that was not true. I think you can make that argument. That's what it appears from my angle. It's not as much what was going on, although that was a big thing. But I think you can recover from it easier if you come up and you say, I messed up. This is, I probably did cross a line here, and I want to be accountable for it, and I hope you'll forgive me for it, rather than come forth with what they did. Let's get our story straight and say we were there together with friends, which does not appear to be the truth. And so to me, that question is the question, and he's skirting around that. That's not a good look. I don't think
he didn't want to touch it. But how I look at it is this: when a player does something that isn't, something that is off the field, or something that is not a part of, and they do something and it's in the news, everybody's coming at them, and there's no, I'm not talking about it. Unless it's a legal matter, they expect the player, and they keep pressing the player. Damn it, you need to press Vrabel. You do. If you don't, you're a coward. That's the way I feel, because you would press the player and try to get the player to say something, but yet still you cowtail to Vrabel, and you're scared to ask him a question. Keep on asking him until he gives you an answer that is not a scripted and thought out answer with the organization that y'all put it together and said, okay, this is what we're going to say moving forward.
I think there would be just a little more satisfaction if he were pressed to answer that question, to at least get him to admit,
exactly,
look, I may have made some bad choices here, something. But Christine Brennan made a really good point about this earlier. The difference, there's the man and the woman double standard that we've talked about backwards and forwards in this. But Christine Brennan made a really interesting, astute point from it, just a straight up journalism angle. I don't know if you saw this, Adam, but I want to get your take on it. But her point was basically, Mike Vrabel is certainly a part of this, but he does not answer to the journalistic standards that Diana Rossini or any member of the media has to answer to. Part of the code of a journalist is ethical, professional behavior, not a conflict of interest. And that is the code that she broke. And it could have been a number of things that break that code besides what appears to be a personal relationship here. So give me your thought on that. So that was interesting to me that an experienced journalist with Christine Brennan's credibility takes that angle. I thought that was a very astute point that I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective. And therefore, he doesn't have to answer as much for his job than Diana Rossini does, because it's a direct part of her job is that behavior.
Here is how I would sum it up. Rossini's transgressions, alleged transgressions, were both moral and ethical. Vrabel's alleged transgression was simply moral, because Vrabel allegedly, if what looks like it happened, if you know what I'm saying. If he allegedly had an affair on his wife, that's a moral dilemma. But Mike Vrabel's ability to coach the New England Patriots is not necessarily compromised by that decision. Rossini, on the other hand, her job as a journalist has been compromised because of the decision she made. So it's not only the fact that she could have, again, allegedly had an affair with Mike Vrabel, but not only did it cross the line in her personal life, it crossed the line in her professional life. So that's the way I see it. That's why this is a much bigger deal for Rossini than it is for Vrabel. But the question I've asked you, Derek, multiple times is, if you are a player in the New England Patriots locker room, and today Mike Vrabel comes in for the team meeting and he addresses you about the situation, I have to imagine he was much more candid about the situation in the team meeting than he was in the news conference. But if you are a player in that team meeting, how does this affect your opinion of Mike Vrabel? How much does it affect how much his leadership can influence you? Because I will tell you what my outside perspective is. That's why I'm asking you, as someone who was in those meetings, who was in NFL locker rooms. To me, I get the sense that the players don't really care. Like, okay, it happened, but it doesn't affect him coaching our football team. But I want the players' perspective. How would you feel in that situation?
I mean, older players understand it does affect what you do and your job, because that's a distraction that you got to manage, or that's a distraction that you got to keep covered from everybody. So yeah, it does become a distraction in a way. Players are, listen, there's a lot of things that, just like everyday life, there's a lot of things that go on within a locker room, just like in a office when you're, at a company, or, a lot of things going on in regards to relationships or whatnot. But when you are the head coach, the president, the CEO, you are just held, the owner, you are just held to a different standard. You are, and you know it when you take that job. So it's not like, I don't want to be held to that standard. That's unfair. No, you know that there's a standard that you need to be held to. So, because what happens is, if you're not held to that standard, do you think the players are going to care? The players are going to be like, okay, he doesn't abide by the rules, so why should I? No, I'm not going to say every player, because you got a bunch of grown men in there. But those younger guys could be thinking, well, if he don't abide by, why should I? He's supposed to be the trendsetter, the leader. My attitude is reflected by how you lead. That's basically what it is. How you lead, what you show. So to me, guys, more so, I think the older guys would be like, man, that's not cool. Younger guys, they may think it, but they're still in their own little world. They may think it and be like, I don't want to rough anything. I don't want to raise my hands, say, hey, coach, this, because they feel if they do that, they put themselves on the outside. So a lot of guys tend to don't say anything. But there's probably, I'm sure, a couple of veterans up there, that say, hey, listen, man, you can't tell us what we can't do, but then you go out and do things like that. And in regards to, Diana breaking the ethical code, yeah, you're right. But Vrabel broke one too. He did. do you think, and it does, and again, it does happen. Do you think that organizations want players dating within the building? I'm gonna tell you, no, they don't. No, they don't. That's off limits, and they frowned upon it big time. So what's different from Vrabel? So when you, and I understand why you said it, or Willie, you're thinking it because you're thinking it from the journalistic world in ethics. You got to be high on your ethics because you don't want anything to compromise what you're doing or saying or putting out. It's the same way as a head coach when you're in the building. So yes, he did break a moral code. He knows that, but he broke an ethical code as well. Just because she isn't employed by the team, she covers you and she's employed by someone that covers you. And you do get access, or she gets access because of what y'all are doing, and y'all become chummy. So yeah, you are compromising the team too. What do you think all this, I believe this in regards to, because it seems like it's sort of New England really ain't gonna do anything about it, but there had to be a point. I have no knowledge of this at all, but I'm just thinking all this through. There were many reasons that Miss Amy decided to part ways, winning and all that, but I'm sure there may have been rumblings like, how's she getting all this information? How close are they?
Because the big reporting
exactly
is being done by her.
Absolutely. No, and I'm sure she had to think like, what is really going on with them two? Everybody in that building had to think that. You can't tell me being in Nashville, her getting all this, whether it's fair or not, her getting those scoops that she got. And Willie said, the big ones. Somebody had to think like, what's really going on with them two?
One texter says, how do you think Rossini got all of the Titans inside stories? He definitely broke an ethical code. Too. I see your point, Derek.
But now let's say this, just for perspective, there have been many coaches who have used the media to leak their side of the story.
Absolutely.
And it's got nothing to do with the relationship with that person, right? It's somebody you trust. It's usually over the years, it's been a guy, the coach, the sports we cover the most, right? It's a male coach and a male reporter. So I don't know that that's really different. Right, a coach using a media person to get their side of the story, their message out. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but still, if you're going to get that close to an individual, man or woman, and I'm not saying, in the matter of them being intimate, but if you're going to have that type of relationship, that's still sort of like an ethical code that you're breaking because you're getting too attached to someone that can leak out or put out your message. When you may be unhappy or you need something to happen, they're putting that message out for you, and nobody knows that it's you that's sending that message through them.
It's just life is complicated, right? The like you were saying, I think a lot of companies would rather two employees don't engage in a relationship, but I think over the course of our careers, we've seen many. It's delicate, but many great relationships were formed with two people that worked in the same. They met in the workplace, so. It's blurry a little bit.
But when it comes to players and they frown on that one.
No question. But let's take like any player who does, I'm thinking back through the years, a player that does a weekly radio show with a host that they trust. Do you think that host doesn't get information that is off the record and filed away? It's just a natural thing. If you trust that person, you're around that person a lot. That's got nothing to do with it's the same concept, but it's very different than two people in a relationship that's immoral, I guess is what we're saying.
My point was this. Rossini has compromised her ability to report on the NFL because of this. Vrabel, from the outside, Derek shared the player's perspective and the team perspective, but from my perspective, from the outside, Vrabel has not compromised his ability to coach. He can allegedly have an affair and still be the best coach in the NFL. And he can continue to coach. Rossini at the moment cannot continue to report. 615-737-1025. Mike Vrabel has broken his silence on the story that will not go away. I wonder if it will go away now. I kind of hope it does. Your reaction to what Mike Vrabel had to say about the Diana Rossini stuff. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, the Predators held their end of season news conferences yesterday, players as well as Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette. And there was one comment made by a player that I swear to you was engineered in a lab to piss me off. We will play that clip coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Yeah, again, obviously, that process is ongoing with the new management, team that's going to be assembled here. And I think we just, we had some meetings today, and I think the message was, the expectation is still to be a competitive team and to push for the playoffs. So I don't anticipate any huge changes, right? We've kind of talked about, is there going to be a rebuild, this, that. I think that's probably safe to say not going to be the case. I think we all want to be part of the solution. Like I said, we saw it for 60 games or 55 games of what the process can look like, and the integration of some of the younger guys and the veteran guys, pulling their weight, and obviously the goaltending that we have here is something we can build off of. So there's going to be some changes for sure, but I think the overall message that was portrayed to us today was, let's have a great summer and let's get off to a really good start next year and push for the playoffs, because that's what every team's goal is at the end of the year.
That was Steven Stamkos yesterday, and that comment was engineered in a lab specifically to piss me off.
Tell us why you're mad, son.
You know why I'm mad. You know how I feel. You heard what he said. As I said, that comment was engineered in a lab to piss me off. And I have some questions about this. But before I pose them to all of you, and you can weigh in as well, 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com. I want to know what you two think of those comments from Steven Stamkos.
I thought it was intriguing in that Steven Stamkos, just a few days before, after they were eliminated, said, I really don't know what to tell you about the coming years because we don't know who the new GM is going to be, and we don't know what that person's outlook and evaluation of the roster is going to be, which I thought was a perfectly logical answer. But it's clear that in his meeting with the outgoing GM and the current coach, who I don't know if is going to, we can't know if he's going to be back next year. He doesn't know if he's going to be back next year. I think based on those vibes, I think there's a decent chance that they might be guided in that direction. But it was not just Steven Stamkos. It was really the theme of everybody. And there was a lot of people. The leadership group all answered questions. Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett. They were all pretty consistent with what Steven Stamkos said. Stamkos was just a little bit more demonstrative about it, basically saying, we feel like in the last 60 games or so, 55 or 60 games, this was a really good team. And it got younger as the season went along. The young players are going to get better, and they think they can be a good team next year. Now, that's the take of this group at the end of the season. What we don't know is the new GM, how is that going to either jive or not jive with what that person's vision is?
Here are a couple of questions I have. And I acknowledge ahead of time that one of them is sort of conspiratorial, which is right up Derek Mason's alley. So here are some of my questions upon hearing Steven Stamkos. And you're right, Willie, Stamkos wasn't the only one who said something like that. Philip Forsberg said, quote, it's not like you're coming in on a team that's at the bottom and needs to be blown up, in my opinion. And whoever we hire, I'm sure is going to share that view. Here are some of my questions. Number one, who told them this? Was it Barry Trotz? That would be odd to me because Trotz is on his way out as GM. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Trotz will stay on in an advisory role until the end of next season, right? When his contract expires, I believe that's correct. Tell me if I'm wrong, Willie. But Trotz is not going to be piloting the ship, so to speak. So it would be odd if Trotz were saying that. Was it Bill Haslam or Haslam through Trotz? Haslam is on record saying he's not in favor of a traditional rebuild. So those are some of my initial thoughts. Here's another question. Here's the one that's a bit conspiratorial. Mm-hmm. Are the Predators seeking a new GM who tells them that they shouldn't rebuild? What if, for example, a candidate in one of the informal conversations or in an in-person interview told them, I think if I'm hired as Predators GM, we should take an intentional step back. Was that person disqualified because of that? Are they looking for someone who tells them what they want to hear? So those are some of my thoughts.
It's a good question. Because let me put yourselves in the shoes of the ownership. Would you want to rebuild?
No.
Perfect world, you would not want to rebuild. You would not choose to rebuild.
From the
right?
perspective of ownership, I can understand why ownership would not want to rebuild.
So I think your disposition naturally would be, is there a way we can do this without rebuilding? That would be a fair question, right? For somebody who's not a hockey expert who owns the team. I'd rather not spend 5 to 10 years knowing my team's going to be awful and going through a really difficult thing that they have observed from a lot of their neighboring teams. One right up the road in Chicago. It's taken a long time. Detroit, they just missed the playoffs again, by the way. That's 11 years in a row. So
can we also point
I don't think it's unnatural to at least be saying, hey, what do you think? Is there a way to do this without blowing it up?
Can we also point out, though, I hear what you're saying, Willie, and when people have this debate, we have this debate, fans have this debate. Look at what's happening in Chicago. Look at what's happening in Detroit. Look at what just happened in Buffalo before this season. I know you can point to those examples as, hey, rebuilds don't always work. Can we also mention, just for the sake of the argument, that there are examples of teams that do rebuild and it does work?
Quickly?
What do you consider quickly? In 2 years?
But you're signing up for
years?
a minimum 5 years of pain. Right?
I would say
Minimum.
You're signing up for somewhere in the 4 to 6 year range. Yes. But it worked for the Avalanche. It worked for the Panthers. It worked for the Penguins once upon a time. It did work for the Blackhawks when they went through their semi-dynastic run. I've mentioned this, the only team that has won the Stanley Cup in recent years that did not go through some hard times was Vegas. So I understand the point. Hey, look at Detroit.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
They didn't go through a 5 to 7 year. They didn't blow it up. They never blew it up.
But that is true.
And it was a pretty remarkable run
Yes.
that they made, a unique run
Yes.
to win it. But they did win it.
Once in a generation type of run, if I do say so myself. But here's my point. This is not what we're going to talk about. I just want to.
No, but I think it's a very important question.
I want to put this on record. When you point to Detroit and Buffalo and Chicago recently and San Jose recently, you can do that. But also don't forget about Colorado and Pittsburgh and Chicago and Tampa Bay at one point. How did they get Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman? So you can point to examples of, hey, do you want to miss the playoffs for 10 consecutive years? Of course not. But there are examples of teams that had to go through that, and it did work. So I just want to
no doubt
put that on the record. Okay, Derek, please continue.
Let's go back to what Stamkos said. I think that it probably wasn't said to him verbatim, we don't want to do a rebuild. But when you have guys like Stamkos, Forsberg, Yossi, Juice, O'Reilly coming into your office, they're not coming in there to hear, oh, we're doing a rebuild. They're looking at the season and they're thinking like, we were so close. And I think Barry and or Coach Bruno say, hey, listen, our goal is to win, get in the playoffs and win. So they're taking that and saying, based upon what I heard, we want to go to the playoffs next year. Looking at the roster and the guys that can't be moved, really, there's not going to be a big overhaul of this team. They're going to go in pretty much. There may be some guys here and there's some younger guys that may come up that start to show themselves. But when you're talking about an overhaul, they're not going to do it. And the head guy, which is the owner, that's like if I'm the owner of a company and I have to fire my president or CEO, the vision doesn't change. with me, just because you leave, the vision is still there. I don't want to rebuild. I've been watching this team very closely, and this team is there. You know, we had some injuries that sort of allowed us or helped us falter at the beginning of the year. And if we are a healthy team with the young guys that showed what they showed at the end of the season, they improved, Evangelista, all those guys, then no, there shouldn't be a overhaul. If I'm a owner, I'm looking at it like, no, we're not doing an overhaul. We will add and maybe, trade some, but we're not doing a overhaul. So what Stamkos said really is accurate, because I can't see a coach coming in, a player coming in, a veteran player that knows more than likely he's going to be on his team, and me telling that veteran player, hey, we're doing an overhaul, we're doing a rebuild, knowing that, man, didn't y'all see what we did when everybody was healthy? You see what we did?
615-737-1025. We will continue this conversation coming up next. You heard Steven Stamkos there. Apparently, no rebuild is forthcoming. How do we feel about this? 615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation and take your reaction coming up next. In the meantime, tee it up with us at the 5th Annual 615 Open, May 28th at Hermitage Golf Course. We are once again supporting Folds of Honor to help them fund life-changing scholarships for families of America's fallen heroes. Register now to player sponsor at 615open.com.
Hey, if you're out there and you have been looking at your monthly budget and you've been month after month paying minimum payments on your credit card and swimming and just not feeling like you're making progress, and you're like, I got to do something about this. Well, focus in, because I've been giving this message out for a long time now through the folks at Loan Pronto. There is a good solution out there. They've been helping a lot of people with this. So don't waste any more time. Call Loan Pronto at 615-499-5780. If that is you, if you've got that credit card interest rate that's way up there, 29%, you're like, I can't tackle that. It's getting out of control. Many homeowners don't realize you can use the equity in your home to access hundreds of thousands in cash. And with Loan Pronto's rapid equity loan, you can do all of these things. You can get money out and pay off the credit card bill, a car loan, et cetera, that's got those high interest rates, and improve it with a better interest rate from your home equity loan. And you can do all this from your phone. You don't have to do a whole lot. It's not like it used to be. This is a streamlined process. It's digital, zero out of pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long, drawn-out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. Rates are at near 3-year lows. So go to loanpronto.com or call 615-499-5780 and get the info on the rapid equity loan. That's loanpronto.com, 615-499-5780. Loan Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1661781, MLSConsumerAccess.org.
I thought the older players drove the group, and they drove it on a daily basis, but they drove it with production. The younger players developed and learned. I just going forward, many of the players in the room, I expect them to return. Team in all areas. We're trying to improve in all areas. Goal is to get back in the playoffs as soon as we can. I think if we get in, we're going to be a team that's going to be there for a while. Veteran players are the culture and the core. Younger players need to take on a heavier workload. That's plain and simple. That's where we are. Our veteran players are older, and they produce. The younger players are developing in the National Hockey League, and now I'm expecting them to take a bigger load next year to help the older players.
That was Barry Trotz yesterday at presumably his final news conference as Predators GM. We also learned yesterday that Barry Trotz has a Predators tattoo,
Man,
but he would not divulge where it is.
well, he loves the organization.
I am shocked to learn that Barry Trotz has a tattoo. He does not scream tattoo guy to me at all.
That's something you would have liked not to know.
No,
But Adam appreciates a good tattoo, though.
I've got,
Yeah.
hold on, eight tattoos, I think.
Tat.
So
See, we're learning.
Rebel.
The listeners, little by little, are learning about Adam. So he's got 8 tattoos, and apparently he looks like Danny Hurley.
Exactly.
yeah,
And he's a rebel.
okay, hold on a minute. Let's go back to the Hurley thing. I want to know what the listeners
The next thing you know, he's going to be accused of headbutting somebody.
Who do I look like? Sean Dursey from the Utah Mammoth? He got fined $5,000 for
Oh,
headbutting
man.
the other day. Sidebar. So on Sunday, I went to the Sounds game with my family. It was a gorgeous day for baseball, by the way, on Sunday. The perfect day for a baseball game. And you know how when you go to the airport, for example, there are people who are trying to sign you up for credit cards, and they stand in the aisle, and they're like, hey, come over here, sign $500 and free something or other. And they're trying to convince you to come over. There was a group of people doing that at the Sounds game for some sort of giveaway. And one of them, in an attempt to get my attention, shouted, hey, Danny Hurley. And I'm like, no. First of all, I detest Danny Hurley. But I don't think I resemble him. I mean, I'm bald and I have glasses, but there are a lot of bald glasses wearing people. Look at Willie Donick. Look at David Janes. We don't all look like Dan Hurley. Anyway, that's all.
So I take you take that as an insult.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Despite how successful of a coach Danny Hurley is, I'm not bitter. Not one bit. All right, let's get back to the Predators. Also, if you want to guess where Barry Trotz's tattoo is, 615-737-1025. When he mentioned it, he seemed to like point or grab towards his hip. I think that would be a weird place to have a tattoo, but hey, who's to say? Anyway, let's get back to what really matters. Let's get to your reaction. 615-737-1025. Andrew says, look at the roster now, especially the old guys, Yossi, O'Reilly, Stamkos, Forsberg. If they want to win it all with those guys, they have to do it within 1 to 2 years. Do we even have enough to trade to acquire enough guys in free agency to make that happen? I say no. Therefore, adding is pointless right now. We should do a full rebuild, not because anyone wants to, but because we have to, unless we want to miss the playoffs by 4 to 8 points for the next 3 years. Another texter says, no team wants a rebuild, but they keep messing around, and next year they won't have a choice and get a new coach and new GM, another 3-year project. And here's something that I've been thinking about when it comes to the Predators and their short-term future. I hear what the two of you are saying. I saw some of the young players take steps forward, such as Matthew Wood, Ryan Ufko got a lot of games. We've talked about the prospect pool, one of the highest ranked in the NHL, according to friend of the show, Scott Wheeler. I know all of those things. But you also have to look at where they are in the Western Conference pecking order. Willie, you tell me, do you think Colorado, Dallas, or Minnesota, do you think any of those three teams are primed to fall off anytime soon.
No, not for another year or two, for sure.
So, by that logic, the Predators' ceiling is capped as fourth place in the Central
No.
Division.
No.
I don't see the Predators overtaking any of those teams in the near future.
It depends on what you think of this group. And I do think that the being emboldened probably from the top down of the number 5 prospect pool is a big part of what you're hearing. Because this is how I see it. They've been rebuilding for about 3 years. Since they made the move to trade Nino Niederreiter, Tanner Jeannot, Mikhail Granlund, and Matthias Ekholm, that was the start of a rebuild. It was not a tank to take it all the way down. But they've been going through the process of restocking the cupboard for 3 years, and I think they are emboldened by seeing that what they've done has produced the, quote, 5th best prospect pool. Now, that alone doesn't get you any wins. You don't get any wins at the beginning of a season from being able to say, we got the 5th best prospect pool. Because that doesn't really mean anything unless the guys that you have on the ice are getting better each year and lifting up the team as a whole. So that's what it comes down to. It's not as much to me about what you're going to get from Stamkos, O'Reilly, Yossi, Forsberg, that group, in terms of trying to get even with the contenders and finding a pathway that's going to have you in contention. It's much more about the next group coming up and how good that group is. So the new GM, this is why I think the new GM could come in and say, you know what? Scott Wheeler thinks we have the top 5 prospect pool, and I like our prospect pool. But I'm still not sure it's good enough. We need to do this, this, and this to retool. So if they have a different vision than what you heard yesterday, then I'd be curious. But there's nothing you can do about that. Like the East is really no different. You've got rising teams over there. So to me, it's just how good can your group be? It's not really relative. I'm not as worried about the other teams you got to go up against. There's always going to be good teams you got to beat.
Sure, but if you want the Predators, again, it depends on what your definition of competitive is. Some of you may think being competitive is having a shot to make the playoffs. And hey, once you get in, anything can happen. To me, I want the Predators to be truly competitive, the way they were when I was covering them, where it was not out of the realm of possibility that the Predators could win the Stanley Cup.
Okay, but that did not happen out of a rebuild.
Understood.
That was smart drafting, developing, gradually getting better until, boom, all of a sudden you had a window, right? I think that is part of the thinking here as well.
Now, Willie, correct me if I'm wrong. Those teams had, when I look at the Predators right now, we mentioned this last week, I think. Their top scorers, with the exception of Luke Evangelista, are all in their 30s.
Yeah.
Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly. I don't remember the teams you're referring to, and I could be wrong. That's why I'm asking. I don't remember the teams that you're referring to being so top heavy, with the top scorers being older players who are exiting their prime years.
No.
So that's why I'm a bit more concerned about this group than I would have been about
what
those
happened?
groups.
What happened? Craig Smith came forward. Victor Arvidsson came forward. Matthias Ekholm, Ryan Ellis, guys that they had drafted and developed, and none of them were high first-round picks other than Seth Jones, who turned into Ryan Johansson, so there's one. And Ryan Johansson was just part of a good committee. He wasn't the, quote, accelerator, right? He was another very good player that was in the mix of other really good players. Shea Weber, second-round pick, turned into PK Subban. This is how they built that roster. So where they are right now, you're in a tough spot because I can see a new GM coming in saying, you know what, it's not enough. The 30-somethings, et cetera, the prospect pool isn't good enough. And so we're not going to get where we want to go with this. But to do that, you got to strip it all the way down and take several steps back. To me, they've already cleared the decks so that all the young players that are ready have a spot. They're not blocking anybody from going in there and playing.
Okay, if you want to rebuild, which you have been saying for
Yes.
the longest, so this is not
Yeah.
something new with you, Adam.
This is years in the making.
Exactly. So
Right.
is this team, as they currently sit,
Mhm.
even though you're asking for a rebuild because you believe that's the quickest way they can get to the top is to rebuild, get some guys within that first 1 or 2 picks
Mhm.
and go from there. Is this team closer to winning, or are they closer to just being a team that's going to constantly just miss the playoffs?
Let me answer
Based-
that
Okay.
on the other side.
All
Okay.
right.
615.
Because I want to know GM Adams' plan. If
Okay.
you're come
Yeah.
in and you say, whoa, hold on, Stammer. Hold on, Trotsy.
By
I got
the
a
way,
different plan.
Hold
I
on,
want to know
little
what the plan
Okay,
is.
Hold on, little
I-
juice.
you have a problem with the little juice.
Yes,
big
I
juice
do.
nicknames.
Absolutely.
You don't like that.
I do not like it one
Matthew
bit.
from Jolton, by the way, says, Adam, I can see the Dan Hurley thing a little bit. Not
Oh,
overly,
wow.
but there are
Oh,
some
wow.
similarities.
Ooh.
And then David sent a picture of me and Dan Hurley, and
Ooh.
it is closer than I thought. 615-737-1025. Why can't I look like Brad Pitt? 615-737-1025. I will answer Derek's question. I will put on my GM hat coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Actually, before we go, let me tell you that the Game Nashville Sports Network will have coverage of the NFL Draft live this Thursday from T-Line Nashville and on Friday from Chicago's home of chicken and waffles. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. Thursday on 102.5 The Game and Friday on Sports Talk 830. We are presented, or it's going to be presented, by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Pizzona MD, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, Sealmaster, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air Home Generators. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Trevor Maddich, ESPN football analyst, will join us in roughly 20 minutes. We will get into the NFL draft, which starts Thursday, with our friend Trevor coming up in about 20 minutes. Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com will join us during the 5 o'clock hour to break down the draft as well. But before we get there, let's continue our Predators conversation. They held their end of season news conferences yesterday. The clip that made the rounds on social media was Steven Stamkos saying, quote, "We had some meetings today, and I think the message was the expectation is still to be a competitive team and to push for the playoffs. I don't anticipate any huge changes. We kind of talked about rebuild and this and that. I think that's probably safe to say that's not going to be the case," end quote. And before the break, Derek, you said, all right, Adam, you've been hired as Predators GM. You want to rebuild. You've wanted to rebuild for years. Tell us what you would do if the Predators wrote you a big fat check and made you the next GM of the team. I mean, I am available.
Or if you think this team is closer to winning than not.
Oh, all right. Well, here is what I would do. Here is what I would do if I were the GM of the team. And I am being realistic here, okay? So I'm not going to say trade Saros, trade Yossi, trade Forsberg, trade Stamkos. They all have no movement clauses. So I am not going to pretend to do something that I think is unrealistic. So here is what I would do if I were given the reins of the Nashville Predators. I would move on from as many veterans as I could. So, for example, I am not re-signing Eric Holla. I am not re-signing Tyson Jost. I am not giving a qualifying offer to Justin Barron, who is a restricted free agent. I would also attempt to trade Jonathan Marchessault, and he had some interesting comments yesterday. By the way, if we don't get to them today, we will certainly get to them tomorrow. But I get the sense that it's not really a fit. He has a no movement clause in his contract. I bet the Predators could find a taker. So I would try to move on from Marchessault as well. So in this scenario, I've removed Holla, Jost, Barron, and Marchessault.
Do you think that's anywhere close to the kind of rebuilding that you're talking about? I don't think that is even in the same stratosphere.
It's not.
That is just a normal maintenance of your roster. You're not talking about a rebuild there.
Again, but I am being realistic.
Well,
here.
but so you agree with Steven Stamkos then? You are 100% agree with Stamkos. He would sign off on all of those moves right there.
That's absolutely not what I'm saying.
But that's what Steven Stamkos is saying, and that's what you're saying.
Can I finish my plan?
Is this team closer to winning than losing?
No, I thought you were finished with the plan.
No, I'm not done.
Oh, you got some.
Oh, okay. So
I'm not done.
Do tell.
I'm not
do
done.
tell.
This is what I would do next, because as GM, I would be on a fact-finding mission. So this is what I would do. I would not replace any of those veterans I just mentioned with other veterans. I am not going out and signing Nick Perbix. I am not trading for Nick Hague. All of those spots will be filled by prospects. The tagline of the 2026-2027 season would be, "Time to swim, kid." That's what it would be. And this is what I would do. There are prospects in the American League who have been there for a little bit. There are prospects in this highly touted prospect pool. I am going to give them an opportunity to show me that they can be meaningful parts of the future. So, for example, no Justin Barron, I'm calling up Tanner Molendyk. No Eric Holla or Tyson Jost, I'm calling up David Edstrom. Brady Martin's going to get a run. I'm going to give Joakim Kemmel more of a run. And I want to see if the quote-unquote kids can sink or swim. So, for example, let's talk about Kemmel for a minute. When did Kemmel join the organization, Willie? I can't remember off the top of my head.
When was he drafted? Or
yes, when he was drafted in 2022.
Right.
Let's also use Fedor Svechkov. He was drafted in 2021. Both players are young players. Svechkov is 23. I think Kemmel is 21 or 22. So this is what I would do. I would give them more run. And I want to see, all right, guys, show me what you got. Show me that when the current core is done, when they retire, when they're past their prime, show me that you can be a part of this team, a meaningful part of this team. And if they sink, I've got a highly touted prospect pool. I can pull more young players from there. So to me, next season would be a fact-finding mission. You still have Forsberg, Yossi, O'Reilly, Brady Shea, UC Saros, but all of the veterans are being replaced by prospects. And by extension, the team may struggle because you're asking younger players to fill roles that they need to grow into.
And that's what you're hoping they do.
All right.
Struggle.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Sure.
I contend they're already doing that.
I think you need to lean into it even more.
How much more could they lean into it? They finished the season with 6 rookies on the roster and like 4 other guys that weren't rookies but were 24 and under. I feel like that is already in motion, that part of it. So when you say more of it, you can't go much more.
Unless you replace them all. And they quickly became one of the youngest
And it's not. It may
teams.
not be healthy to do too much of it because you are going to have some guys, just because of the sheer numbers, some are going to do well and do exactly what you're hoping they do. Show me you belong on this next group. And there will be a few others that are Phil Tomasino.
Right. And if there is someone who turns out to be Philip Tomasino, for example, I say, okay, Philip, thanks for your service. We're going to move on. Let me
They're
go.
doing that. Are they not doing that?
I agree with you.
They've been doing it for.
I am not disputing that. I can say unequivocally, and this probably will come as a shock to some people just because of the older players on the roster. After the Predators traded McCarron and Smith and Blankenberg and Bunting, they had one of the 10 youngest rosters in the NHL at the after the trade deadline.
Yes.
So I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm saying I would lean into it even more. So if I'm losing a veteran defenseman in Justin Barron, I am not going out and replacing him with another veteran defenseman. I am not going to free agency and signing a 27-year-old, a 28-year-old defenseman to replace Justin Barron. I am calling on Tanner Molendyk to do that. And if the team struggles, well, it puts you in a position to have high odds in the draft lottery to pick at the top. So I am trying to be realistic here, because for me to come in here and say, blow it up, trade everybody, that's not going to happen. I don't want to live in a fantasy world where I say, well, I'm going to blackmail UC Saros into waiving his no movement clause so I can trade him to the Edmonton Oilers and blow everything up.
Okay, so I still contend, based on your GM, Adam,
yes,
that you are not that far, if at all, from Steven Stamkos's vision. What you're saying is already what I think they're doing. Pretty close to it. With the exception, they might find, to me, they might try to find the right veteran or two to sprinkle in to anchor and support the group of players that they have coming up. So to me, the only thing that would signal a completely different direction would be to trade Stamkos and O'Reilly. To me, if you're going down that road, if the new GM says we got to trade Stamkos and O'Reilly and we got to open it up and we got to prepare to not make the playoffs the next couple of years while the kids sink or swim, to me, that would be a different direction. As long as you're keeping Stamkos and O'Reilly, everything you do to the rest of the roster is not different than what they're already doing. That's not a new direction.
You're like
in my opinion.
You're like the guy that's reading the instructions, and then the other guy comes over, or the wife comes over and says, well, no, this is the right way. I'm going to do it this way. And then you go back, you say, no, let's do it this way. And then she looks at you and say, that's the same way I just did it. What did you do different? That's you, Adam. You're basically what Willie is saying they're already doing.
One texter says, Willie, doing it for the last 20 games is way different than doing it for a whole season.
They have been doing it.
My point is, next season, what you saw post-deadline, I am leaning into it even more, and I'm doing it from game 81 to game 82. That's my point.
But so Steven
I don't-
Stamkos, you don't
So
think
you're going to
he
have a
realizes
constant
that
rotation.
as he's saying what he's saying, he knows that that's the case. It's not like they're going to bring back McCarron, Bunting, Smith, and Blankenburg.
Right, but you get my point. Let's say the Predators do not re-sign Eric Hall. Okay, let's just say it's different if the Predators go out and sign Charlie Coyle to replace Eric Halla versus bringing in David Edstrom. Charlie Coyle has been in the NHL Charlie Coyle has been in the NHL for 14 years. He's played more than 1,000 games. David Edstrom has played what? 0 games in the NHL?
Right.
It's different. So that
But David Edstrom, based on what he's done in Milwaukee this year, I don't believe he's ready for regular work.
Well, you don't
put a guy in there that's
can-
not ready.
Look, you've got to, you can, there's
You
enough,
have a support.
there's
That's why
enough
you have
churn.
support players.
there's
like
enough churn. Like if Edstrom isn't ready, you can send them back to Milwaukee and call somebody else up.
somebody else being who?
I don't have the Milwaukee Admirals roster in front of me.
So at center, that's a unique spot because you need the support, that you need those anchors. That's why somebody like Halla or Charlie Coyle or some other veteran that they find or trade for, those guys are supporting David Edstrom, but hopefully not blocking. If Edstrom blossoms, believe me, they will get him in there when he's ready. But you have to do it smart, and you have to hope that the numbers that you have in the prospect pool work to your advantage. But there's going to be some competition amongst the young players,
sure,
to win those jobs, right? And there's some guys that you're not really going to see get in there and really flourish for another couple years. I would love to tell you that Brady Martin next year at age 19 is going to jump in there and make a huge breakthrough. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. Philip Forsberg didn't do it at age 19, but at age 20, all of a sudden, boom, he became almost the rookie of the year. And he was a game changer. So they all arrive at different times. And so I don't think you can go into a season saying, let's just put all these young guys out there with Stamkos, O'Reilly, and those groups. There's a smart way of doing it. So I just don't think what you're saying is that radical. They're already doing it to some degree. And I think they know that they're not going to go into the free agent market this year and find, because there isn't going to be that guy. If Charlie Coyle, who you just mentioned, who is a little long in the tooth, a very good player, might be the best free agent that's out there, or maybe Alex Tuck, right? That's another guy. So there's only so much you can do with free agency. It might be shrewd trades. What if I took 3 of the prospects in the pool? I don't know who they would be. And I packaged a 2nd-round pick and a future 1st-round pick or a future 3rd-round pick, and that brought me another young player in his mid-20s that maybe isn't perfect but has a chance to be way better than Eric Halla. These are all the things that you can do, I think, to close the gap between where they are now and where they want to be.
One texter says, same guy who ruined the Sharks game and caused the Predators to miss the playoffs is the same one who wants to blow up the roster and not make the playoffs for the next 10 years. I don't know who you're talking about, texter.
Adam.
I ruined nothing.
Mr. Jinx.
I ruined
Exactly.
absolutely nothing. One texter says, I'm 100% on Team Adam on this. Lean in a lot more on the kids for a full season. That's not a complete teardown, but it's also building for the future.
That is in motion right now. That is in motion.
I'm
do
saying-
we disagree? They don't have any.
I don't disagree.
I don't think they're going to bring in a new Bunting, Smith, McCarron. They're not going to. They might bring 1 or 2 to replace the guys that are already on the roster. But I think the guys who ended the season, no question, they have to find out if those guys can do it for 82 games. LaRue and Kemmel and those guys you mentioned.
One texter says, I agree with what Adam is saying. By the way, there are texts in here who disagree with me. I agree with what Adam is saying and believe this could be successful if the organization drafts correctly. Look at Anaheim, Philadelphia, and how they've been able to draft the right young key pieces and make the postseason more quickly than predicted. Another texter says, Adam, to your guys' point, Adam, that's not a rebuild. I think what you said is common sense. I would keep O'Reilly on the team until at least the trade deadline so the kids can learn from him. Another texter says, Mr. Jinx, please say there is no way the Predators will get the number 1 pick. Okay, you know what? If I say this and they get the number 1 pick, I will believe in Jinxes, okay? There is no way the Nashville Predators will get the number 1 pick in the NHL draft. If that happens, yes, if that happens, I will believe in Jinxes.
Okay.
The draft lottery is in a couple
We
weeks.
heard that.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Predators. We will get back into the Predators more on tomorrow's program. But coming up next, Trevor Maddich will join us. We will get into the NFL draft, which starts Thursday with our friend Trevor. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D Mace, Vingan and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. The NFL Draft starts Thursday night. Thank the Lord. And to talk about the draft, we'll go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Trevor Maddich, who is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Hi, Trevor. How are you?
Adam, I'm great. How are you?
We're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us as always. All right, Trevor, the first round of the NFL Draft starts in 2+ days. We're almost there. Tell me what your gut is telling you that the Titans will do with the number 4 overall pick.
Adam, my gut tells me they'll take Jeremiah Love because they have addressed a lot of needs on defense already through free agency and trades. And as soon as they took Cam Ward at quarterback with the number 1 overall pick last year, they made their priority building up a team around him that he can thrive in so that they will know by the time they get to his 4th year whether or not they need to give him a new contract as their franchise quarterback. And right now, there just are not enough elite weapons on offense for him. Love gives him an elite running back, but more than that, a versatile weapon that can move from sideline to sideline and line up at any wide receiver position to take advantage of whatever the defensive personnel group is and get a matchup advantage against Love in space. And so I think they will go with Love for that reason. They could trade down, and I can see good reasons for it. But overall, I think that they'll stay where they are because the farther down they trade in this draft, the more likely it is they'll just get a good player instead of an elite difference maker. And this is a team that improved their good player roster with what they've done so far in the pre-draft process. Right now, what they need is elite. And I think Love is where they will go.
Trevor, we saw a fascinating trade over the weekend. The New York Giants traded Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals straight up for the 10th overall pick in the draft on Thursday. And we discussed this yesterday. Clearly, the Bengals thought at number 10 that they weren't going to be able to draft an impact defender. So here's my question. Does the Lawrence trade make it more likely that a team will be motivated to trade up with the Titans to guarantee that they will get one of the top defenders, such as Arvell Reese or David Bailey or Sonny Styles?
I think it might. But I think when you say elite defenders, I think that just goes to the idea of elite player. And in this draft, there are fewer elite players that you can kind of count on that are a good risk, a good bet that will turn into that in the NFL than there are in other drafts in recent memory. So I think, though, that trade was fantastic for both sides, though. I think Dexter Lawrence kind of has signaled that he didn't like being a Giant, and when you got new coaches and new systems and stuff like that, maybe he didn't like the scheme and everything he was going to be asked to do. And maybe they thought, he was going to find a way to get out of here anyhow. And we don't want a guy that doesn't want to be here in our locker room. So it was good for him to trade out. But also for the Bengals, I think this is a direct parallel with the Titans with Cam Ward. The Bengals have Joe Burrow at quarterback, and he took him to the Super Bowl all right, but that was with a terrible defense and a worse offensive line. And I think Burrow might be sitting there thinking, okay, is this team going to improve enough around me that I should be wanting to sign another contract here? And if they can't improve the defense, then Burrow will be in desperation catch-up passing mode late in games far more frequently than is safe physically to do. And I think he might be saying to himself, okay, this is good. They brought in a proven elite defensive game wrecker, and that's going to help me to run a more consistent offense. And so I think they did that with a thought towards Burrow in the same way that the Titans should be looking at what's best for Cam Ward. But again, I think the Titans have an opportunity right now to take a potentially elite player with the number 4 pick. If they trade down much past maybe 7, I don't think they're going to get an elite player.
Now, Trevor, which team do you think can sort of change the tenure of the draft? Is it Arizona at 3 if they choose to move out of 3, or would it be the Titans at 4 if they choose to move out of 4?
I think it would change it more if Arizona moved out of number 3, because that means that somebody in there is desperate for probably Jeremiah Love. I don't know that you trade up for any of the other guys that are there, any of the defensive guys, unless you're totally desperate for a pass rusher, which somebody might be. But I think that a trade to number 3 would affect more things because it would cost more than to trade up to 4. I think from a Titans perspective, though, if they stay at 4, it won't matter if somebody trades to number 3 and the Cardinals drop back out, because there are basically 4 players that I think, and maybe 5, that the Titans could take at number 4 and get that elite playmaker. We know that we think that at number 1, the Raiders will take Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. So the other 4 that we'd be targeting, right, are Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles, the Ohio State linebackers, and Jeremiah Love, running back from Notre Dame. Those are the people. And then David Bailey, the pass rusher out of Texas Tech. And so you've got 4 players that you could take at number 4, and only 2 teams ahead of the Titans to take them. So if somebody jumps into number 3, it won't really matter because the numbers still favor the Titans. And by the way, I would put David Bailey at number 4 in terms of priority. If I'm the Titans, I'd take either linebacker Reese, linebacker Styles, or running back Love if I'm in that position. And one of those guys is guaranteed to be there if the Titans don't move out.
Now, you did mention, you believe the Titans will draft, but if they don't draft Jeremiah Love and choose to move out, that would be a huge, huge surprise. But if you've looked at, the hiring and firing of head coaches throughout at least the last couple of years, a lot of these guys have been fired because why? They couldn't generate offense. We can look at teams that had really good defenses. Saleh fell sort of in that boat where you had a good defense, but you never could get your offense. So do you think that would be a motivator for the Titans to take a Jeremiah Love, knowing that, hey, if we don't get this offense right, no matter what, we're going to get fired?
Yeah, Derek, I think that's a terrific point. And remember that the new stadium's coming online. A lot of people thought they drafted Cam Ward number 1 in part to get people excited about PSLs and season tickets for the new stadium down the road. And it's not a very good sell to say to the fans, hey, we have a great defense and we are going to win games 13-10 and you're going to love it. No, if I want that, I'll go see the soccer game, right? Or I'll go watch the Sounds play baseball. They'll probably get higher than that. So I really think that bringing in offense also helps sell tickets. Now, if the owner of the Titans puts pressure on the team to draft offense for the purpose of selling PSLs and season tickets, then the Titans are doomed and they will never be successful under this ownership. But I think so I don't think that she will do that. I don't think Adam Strunk will do that. But I do believe that the Titans coaching staff and front office do understand the bigger picture of the Titans as a business. And it wouldn't bother them at all to contribute to that by bringing in an exciting offensive player.
Trevor Maddux is with us. Trevor, we had a good discussion before you came on today about Mike Vrabel and his statement today. And I guess there were a couple of questions he took away from the cameras that didn't clear things up a whole lot more. And we were comparing that to the track that Diana Rossini has had to take. What are your thoughts on what Vrabel was, his strategy, I guess, about this whole thing today?
Yeah, well, I think he's doing what he has to do, which is to say, address it so that he can say that he addressed it, and then move on. And the answer to the rest of the questions in the future will be asked and answered. Let's talk about this week's game, right? And so he did that, and nobody's satisfied with it. He knew nobody would be satisfied with it, but he had to do it in order to get to that next phase, which is asked and answered. Ask me about my upcoming opponent. The thing is, though, there's a couple things involved here. And I think this is going to be a hot and heavy topic for a long, long time among the fans and the media for a couple of reasons. One is just the salacious nature of it. If it's true, boy, is it juicy. And I'm not saying that it is true or that it isn't, but that to me is irrelevant. As a former player, I look at that and say, well, whatever. People do what they do. And, if that's the worst thing you do in your life, you're a pretty good person on both sides. And so a lot of players would see it that way, and then they will want to transition back. The problem is what it does for the shield. In other words, the NFL is very paranoid almost about protecting the reputation of the league. And right now there are a lot of conspiracy theories rolling around out there that seem to have at least a basis to consider, right? We have Spygate with the Patriots where they got busted, I guess. I don't know if I should say allegedly. They kind of got busted taping opponent signals in a way that was illegal in the NFL, and people think that helped them to win games and win Super Bowls. Then there's Deflategate, where they were allegedly busted taking some of the air out of the footballs to make it easier to throw, to catch, and for running backs to hold on to it. People think about just throwing the ball in bad weather, and if you can squeeze it a little more, that makes it easier to control coming out of your hand as a quarterback. But it's more than that, because during those years that Deflategate was going on, certainly the year that they were busted, the Patriots were the team with the fewest fumbles of any team in the league, and it wasn't even close. And I asked Jerome Bettis when he was working at ESPN at the time about that, the great running back from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I asked him if deflating the ball a bit would make it easier for the running back to not fumble, and especially in cold weather. And he said, absolutely, it would make it easier to not fumble. And the Patriots were best in the league at limiting fumbles, right? So these are conspiracy theories or truths, depending on what you want to do, that have a basis to hang on to. Then you've got others that are more tenuous, but that fans love to jump on, which is that the refs are making bad calls left and right to put their thumb on the scale because the league favors one team over another or one quarterback over another. Now, is there proof of that? I don't think there's any proof of that at all. I don't think that's existing, but it's out there. Now you've got a situation with the reporter that there's collusion behind the scenes, either because the reporter has a relationship with the coach or because the team is giving the reporter scoops in return for the reporter spinning the narrative in favor of the team. And now we stack on top of all that other stuff the concept that we can't even trust what we're being told about the NFL in the first place. Now, is any of that true? I don't know. But the NFL has every right to be, at least privately, very upset about this, because it brings back to the forefront every conspiracy theory and credibility theory, and it brings back to the forefront the concept that people already kind of know about, that teams will feed scoops in return for positive spin. And the NFL doesn't want this to be the story.
So this is something that Christine Brennan had an interesting angle on that I had not thought of. And she basically said, from a journalistic standpoint, Diana Russini is guilty of knowing what the journalistic code is and knowing what the consequences would be if you're caught with that. Whereas Mike Vrabel doesn't really have to answer to the journalistic code. All of the other things you just brought in are definitely factors, and that is something to go forward with and wait and see if it's, in terms of the shield and the credibility and all that stuff. He's got to answer to that. But from purely a journalistic standpoint, is Russini more culpable than Vrabel? Christine Brennan would say yes.
Well, if this is true, then I would agree with Christine, just because if Mike Vrabel is feeding information to her because he's allegedly having an unprofessional relationship with her, it doesn't help Vrabel win football games. But the opposite side of that is very true, that if it's true, and I'm not saying that it is, that this relationship was occurring, then it would have given the reporter information that gave her a leg up on her competition in the world of reporters and career advancement and things like that. And I would see that if I'm another reporter competing with her in in this business, I would see that as a runner in the Olympics competing against somebody who was taking steroids, or a swimmer competing against someone who was taking steroids. All of a sudden, I did all the work in order to be on the pedestal as a medalist, and I'm not. I'm not third. I'm fourth now because somebody took steroids and they finished a tenth of a second in front of me, right? And again, whether or not the allegations are true, I am not addressing right now. I'm just saying, as another reporter, I would look at that and say, well, gee, no wonder I'm not advancing like I thought I should. It's because I need to do X, Y, Z with the coach in order to get the information that person is getting. So you come back to the original question, Willie, and the reason that if it's true, I think it has greater impact on the side of the reporter is because ethically, it is an unethical leg up in a career race that other reporters aren't getting if they're not doing the same thing.
Trevor Mathich has been our guest on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday and is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, as always, a pleasure. Enjoy the NFL draft. We'll recap it all with you next week.
Great. Thanks, Adam.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on what Trevor had to say. And coming up next, we'll react to something that came out yesterday that I think we all sort of already knew, but now we have somebody saying it out loud. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting the goal to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some good news because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
the 2030 Super Bowl. I was informed by a source on Saturday that it is signed and ready to go, in his opinion, that Nashville is getting the 2030 Super Bowl. I haven't seen any reports on this, and if there is a report on it, I'll acknowledge that, but this is what I was told on Saturday. Nashville is getting the 2030 Super Bowl. Vegas is getting the 2029 Super Bowl. 2027, Los Angeles, and then it's Atlanta 2028. But this is what I was told over the weekend. Nashville will get the 2030 Super Bowl. They got a new stadium coming in.
That was Dan Patrick. I guess breaking news that our fair city will host the Super Bowl in 2030.
So has it been official?
It's not officially announced, but I feel like we've been sort of talking about this for the past few weeks. We'll have Paul Kuharsky on to wrap up the show. I know he's reported on this. So when I heard that clip from Dan Patrick, I wasn't like, oh, the Super Bowl coming to Nashville in 2030. I was like, I thought I kind of already knew that. I mean, don't get me
But
wrong.
specifically, like I think we've all known they're gonna get one in that neighborhood. But saying we know the season, that's I give them credit. That's a scoop.
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't have everybody going, oh my God, I had no idea. It just has them going, oh, okay, 2030.
But you kind of figure once they got the stadium,
right? It was gonna
happen. Yeah, it was inevitable. So 2030 Titans, y'all on the clock. 2030. Do you want to be hosting the Super Bowl or attending the Super Bowl in the stands?
Paul Kuharsky reported from the owners' meetings with Super Bowl. Which number is that? 50? Is that 58? With Super Bowl 58, I don't know my Roman numerals. I did not pay attention in that part of class. With Super Bowl 58 officially awarded.
What are the letters?
LXIII.
LX. That would be 68.
Oh, sorry. My bad, everybody.
Right?
Nope.
Jeez, Adam.
Hold on.
LX. Wait, what is it? LX.
LXIII is 63.
63. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, guys. With Super Bowl 63 officially awarded to Las Vegas.
See, we teach people things.
There you go.
I don't think that's the bell, but that's a little educational piece.
It's
Roman numeral.
I can't wait for someone young listening, to go to school tomorrow and be like, I nailed my Roman numerals because I was listening to D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick on the way home.
He gave us XL.
With the next Super Bowl or whatever, I don't care, officially awarded to Las Vegas, the first possible game Nashville can host is Super Bowl LXIV in February of 2030. LXIV is 64. Okay. Super Bowl 64 in February of 2030. So Paul Kuharsky reported that on March 30th. So again, that's why I thought when I heard that Dan Patrick clip that surfaced, I think it was yesterday, I'm like, okay, makes sense. But
I mean, again, I think this was inevitable. I'm sure once the plans went in for the stadium and the completion date was put on paper, the questions probably even before that is, when are we going to have a Super Bowl here in Nashville? They've already had the draft. So now they're looking for something bigger, and that would be it, Super Bowl. And then obviously being a part of the college football playoff, that's going to be another one. But when you get a new stadium, I think it's almost mandated that you now sort of are in the mix for a Super Bowl and ultimately will get one. So
the mayor's office, through a spokesperson, told the Tennessean, quote, "We joined a large coalition with a letter of support for the idea of hosting a Super Bowl in Nashville, but we've not been advised by the League of Nashville selection or any potential dates."
So how many years out? Because, okay, prior to this news coming out with the Titans, had they already set like 20? I know 26 was set, 27 and 28. How far out do they go? That's what I'm wondering.
Okay, hold on.
Typically.
Let's see here. So the next Super Bowl will be at SoFi Stadium.
Okay.
This coming season, 2027. In 2028, the Super Bowl will be hosted by Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. and in 2029, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas.
So it's like at least 3 years out.
At least 3 years out.
Okay.
So LA 2027, Atlanta 2028, Las Vegas 2029. Those are locked in.
Okay.
So that would be the next one that is to be announced. That's more on the Dan Patrick thumbs up for the scoop.
Damn, it's gonna bring even more people to this city.
Look, it's their loss if you don't want to come to Nashville for these things, like the college football playoffs.
Oh, it's gonna be wonderful.
And the Final Four, I think someday.
Mhm.
Our city is just built for these things.
Is it?
I think so.
What do you mean, is it?
I'm saying like to house like a lot of people coming in.
Oh, it
will be by 2030, I'm sure.
Oh, I think we've come so far.
But it's just
like 10 or 15 years ago, there was still this.
course.
You don't have enough hotels. And stuff. That is not.
But it's not
problem
even a
anymore.
hotel. It's just that's one part.
The transportation.
the
issue is a
transportation
problem.
things. Yeah, that's what I'm really talking about. Like the transportation.
But people will
issue.
deal with
But
that.
look at Allegiant Stadium, for instance, in Las Vegas.
There's nothing really in Vegas, so they got a lot of room to spread out outside of the casinos and stuff.
But Allegiant Stadium has already hosted a Super Bowl,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
It's hosting the Final Four in 2028. The 2028 Final Four will be at Allegiant Stadium. WrestleMania this past weekend was at Allegiant Stadium. It's been at Allegiant Stadium 2 years in a row, this year and last year. So who's to say that Nashville could not become that place where it's
Get in the rotation.
right, a Super
Yeah.
Bowl every few years, the Final Four every now and then, WrestleMania every now and then. Who's to say that Nashville?
I
think
think
they will be.
I think that's the goal.
Yeah, I think they
because
will
I
be.
think our downtown is just so good. Once you get in there and you're down there, it just plays perfectly to those events. People just love the craziness of being able to stumble out from their hotel, do all the stuff downtown, and also be so close to the venue, the arena and the stadium.
Especially when
And then
they
there's these
build
other
up.
things like
Yeah.
the other, there's a lot of talk recently about the East Bend
Mhm.
on the other side of the river which is the same side of the stadium,
Mhm.
how you can build that area out. That's kind of a vision in the coming years. And of course, all of the stuff they're building right around the stadium, which is where the old stadium is now. I don't know what will be finished by 2030, but I would think a lot of it will got 5 years.
I mean, the thing we have going for us when it comes to holding these sorts of events is, as you guys both mentioned, the proximity of everything
Yeah.
that you need. You've got Bridgestone Arena, you've got Broadway, you've got the Music City Center. The stadium is downtown. So everything you really need is within walking distance if you're staying downtown.
And it should be warm right around that time. The weather shouldn't be too bad unless we
Okay.
have a
No, we
a
never
winter
know.
dump.
We don't know with that.
Yeah.
With the
I'm
Super
not-
Bowl.
I'm not
Yeah.
reacting
No
to
idea.
you. I'm reacting to Caleb.
Okay.
Caleb says, no one cares about WrestleMania anymore, Adam.
Uh-oh.
Let me tell you.
Uh-oh.
I mean, look, I think between the 2 nights of WrestleMania over the weekend, Allegiant Stadium had more than 100,000 people over 2 days. People would flock to Nashville for WrestleMania. This isn't me being, it's still real to me, damn it, wrestling fan. I'm just telling you, Caleb and others, that WrestleMania brings in a ton of people and a ton of money. So that's all I'm saying. My point is, Allegiant Stadium, it's in the rotation.
Mhm.
It's got the Final Four, the Super Bowl, 2 WrestleManias in a row, other events. So I could see Nashville being like that as soon as the new stadium opens.
Yeah, and then Nashville, well, the state of Tennessee, but Nashville in particular, you're 8-9 hours from Detroit. You're 3 hours to Atlanta. You're, a little bit further if you're entering into Florida, Indiana. So all these places are close, and people don't necessarily have to get on the plane to get here. They can drive and be here, on average 8 hours. Even if you're on the East Coast, New York, you can still make the drive if you want to. It might take you 12, 13 hours somewhere around there, but it's still a drivable sort of drivable state when you're talking about housing the Super Bowl or the Final Four. It's an easy place to get to.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Dan Patrick saying that Nashville will host the Super Bowl in 2030. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll get back into the NFL draft. God, there are so many smoke screens and reports. I can't even keep up with all of them. We will attempt to make sense of them coming up next. 615-737-1025. All of our off-season football coverage here on 1025 The Game is presented by Tennessee Brewworks. Raise a glass with Tennessee Brewworks, proud partner and official craft beer of the football off-season coverage right here on 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com as Derek cracks open a Sprite.
Paul.
What?
Isn't that how Rex says his name? Paul.
Oh, yes. Rex Rowe does the Edith Bunker
Exactly.
impression of Kuharsky.
Hey,
which,
Paul.
yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it justice. It's too good.
You like my beverage?
I like your mini can of Sprite.
Yes. I can't buy any can. Like, I've gotten so used to these.
The little
like
cans?
the small cans. And you'll start buying them when they, once the kids.
I
get a
buy
little
them
older.
sometimes.
You still buy them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't buy the big ones. I'll buy all small ones, the minis.
Yes. The minis are good.
Yes.
But Paul Kuharsky will join us in about 20 minutes. We do have a slightly shorter show today ahead of Vanderbilt baseball.
Vandy.
By the way, Vanderbilt takes on Xavier at Hawkins Field. First pitch is at 6. You can catch all the action here on 1025 The Game, and coverage is presented by Gary Force Acura. But before we get to PK, 2 days left before the NFL draft, and my head is spinning trying to keep up with all of the reports, who's going here, who's going there, all of this stuff. I want to try to make sense of some of it. So let's start with Peter Schrager of ESPN. He recently did one of his podcasts basically spilling his guts. Here are all of the things I'm hearing ahead of the NFL draft. And here is what Peter Schrager said about the Tennessee Titans.
Well, I know I spoke with someone in the organization in Tennessee, and they told me this morning that they have seen 6 different players tagged to them this morning for their 4th overall pick by people in the media. 6. There's the 4th overall pick, and 6 different players have been tagged to them. I will say this. I don't think the Titans are taking Jeremiyah Love anymore. I am moving off of that. That was something I had in my mock draft and felt like that was the pick. As we are now 4 days before it, I do not think the Titans are taking Jeremiyah Love at 4. I think the Titans are taking either one of the 2 following players. Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State, or the Bailey Reese, who doesn't go there or is available. And then my third backstop would be Carnell Tate. Yeah. Carnell Tate could go as high as 4. I don't know how I want to.
So that was Peter Schrager. Can you keep up with all of that?
It's a lot.
Peter Schrager, he knows what he's talking about, but that was a lot. So there's that. And then there was Todd McShay today. He sent out another story at his website with everything he's hearing. And here are some of those notes from Todd McShay. Arizona's plan at number 3. Quote, priority number 1 remains trading back, getting extra draft capital to later move up for Ty Simpson, and finding an offensive tackle at a better value a handful of spots down the board. But if no reasonable trade down presents itself, I could see them sticking and picking or possibly even moving up to number 2. If no reasonable trade down presents itself, I've heard from multiple sources that ownership wants Jeremiyah Love and that the front office wants David Bailey. It's important to note that a trade up would be for Reese or Bailey, which increases the odds of those 2 pass rushers being gone in the top 4 picks. So that's Todd McShay on the Cardinals. Then he says, for the Titans, there are Love backers in the building, but I'm getting strong, in all caps, indications that this pick will be defense. It sounds like it would be Bailey or Reese if either are available, but Sonny Styles is considered by head coach Robert Saleh as a Fred Warner type of player and difference maker. Folks around the league know that Saleh believes in building around that position. My head is spinning.
That's a lot.
But that's the game.
Exactly.
They want your head to spin.
It's spinning.
They don't want to telegraph the pick.
Exactly. They want you to think that, oh, we're not taking this guy, or we're possibly taking these 3 guys, and then the team right above you saying, well, we have picked, but we really want to move down, but we may take this defensive guy, or we could take the offensive guy. So who wants to move up to get the guy that we may take? Because if you don't move up, somebody else is going to move up, and they're going to take that guy. So it's all just a game right now. It's all just, Schrager might be dead on, but I just watching the draft and sort of reporting on it or whatever the last, at least let's say the last 5 or 6 years, all stuff like this always happens. And sometimes they're close to being right, and sometimes they're way off. But I don't think the Titans right now at this stage is going to give somebody the answers to the test right now. They're going to try to confuse you.
But let me ask you this question. As all of you know, Derek and I are aboard the love train. By the way, when I walked in here today, what song did I hear? One of my favorites, Your Love by The Outfield. So maybe it was a sign. I don't know. But we are aboard the love train. Let me ask you this, Derek Mason. In the lead up to the draft,
Yes.
is there any part of you that is beginning to doubt that the Titans will draft Jeremiah Love at number 4?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's a draft.
I know,
And
but
anything
like,
can
is it like a little pain in your stomach? Like, oh.
A lot of it comes
Or
from,
is it like, oh my God, this ulcer?
a lot of it comes from my bias because I want them to draft Jeremiah Love. And anytime and I'm just being honest, anytime somebody says, well, they're going to draft this guy or they're going to draft that guy, I know there's a possibility of that happening, but I'm still like, I don't like it. I don't like to hear it. And it does kind of sort of make you feel a certain way. I was like, man, I hope they draft Love, but I know how this game works and they can go defense, which, you know, if they draft somebody from the defense side of the ball, it's not going to hurt the team. It's going to help the team still, depending on what guy they draft. But the closer and closer you get, it's almost like a part of me wish that I didn't think about this Love thing like in January. I wish I would have been more like pushing it right now because I wouldn't be so like anxious, like hurry up, draft, get here. Because I've been on this Love train for the longer. And it's like, if they don't draft this guy, man, I'm gonna feel bad for a minute.
I think a lot of people will react like that, like you, because I do think there's a pretty big chunk of Titans fans that can envision it.
Yes.
And it's just the nature of football. It's exciting to think about the running back and the quarterback and the sexiness of that. And like Trevor just put it perfectly. You're opening up a new stadium. That's what I brought up yesterday. At any point, do you think it's possible that Amy Adams or, you know, through somebody else in that circle that are not really football people, but just thinking from a business angle, hey, man, I really like the vision of quarterback, running back, going into the new stadium together, just like Eddie George and Steve McNair.
I was just about to ask you.
Nostalgic. You know that has got to be a natural thought. So if you don't draft him, if he's there, there's going to be a backlash. There's nothing that Mike Borgonzi can do about that. He's got to really be sticking to his guns there.
Well, let me ask you this. You took me where I wanted to go next. Let me reread this section about the Cardinals from Todd McShay. If no reasonable trade down presents itself, I've heard from multiple sources that ownership wants Jeremiah Love and that the front office wants David Bailey. Could you envision that same scenario playing out here if that situation presents itself? Ownership wanting Jeremiah Love and the front office wanting David Bailey, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, etc.
To me, it's different if you've been following this and on every mock draft, you're seeing Bailey and Reese going before Love.
Yes.
I think you can easily justify that a pick of one of those two guys. You just say, hey, look, we didn't think these guys were going to fall to us, but he fell. We got to take this guy. It's different if you jump up. And he mentioned Carnell Tate. That would really have
that would shock me.
That would be a head scratcher.
Love wide receivers, the idea of it, like that's guy at 4. I don't know. Sonny Styles would be, I think, a little bit of a reach at 4, but at least you've been hearing people say this guy it's because of the position he plays, but the talent is definitely top 4. But it would be tricky. It'd be easier to justify Bailey or Reese.
You can't justify Carnell Tate. You just can't. I think the fan base will go crazy, and not in a good way. You just can't justify
that. Feels like a trade down scenario.
Exactly. Absolutely.
If you trade down to 8 and draft Carnell Tate at 8, I think you can justify that more than taking him at 4.
Yeah, you can't justify taking him at 4, but it's the same thing. Whether the Titans move up, stay put, or move down. I don't think they're going to move up, but move down or stay put. I think a lot of this is to drum up some interest on teams potentially wanting to move up, because we know 100% sure who's going to be taking number one. It's that 2 through 4. And if I can get you to sort of think, if I'm the Cardinals or if I'm the Titans, possibly even the Giants, if I can get you to think that I'm going to take somebody and get you to give me something that you probably wasn't going to give, then that's a win for me. And I did my job, which was convince you that I'm going to take this player, knowing that you want him. You're going to jump me because you don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to get what I want, and I'm going to get the player I want.
I have a text on my personal line. I don't want to say his name.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call him Chase M. No, that's too obvious. C. McCabe. Let's call him C. McCabe. Who could that be?
Wonder who that is.
C. McCabe says, ask Derek if he thinks taking Tate at 4 would be equivalent of taking Corey Davis at 5.
Almost. It is almost. I think Tate is a better prospect than Corey Davis. But even taking him that high, he's not Jeremiah. He's not Jeremiah Smith. Even though I like him a lot, he's not. When you're drafting 4, he has to be that guy. And if you're drafting him at 4, there's still people that say he's not the number 1 receiver in the draft.
Is that Jordan Tyson?
Yeah, some people are now putting Jordan Tyson ahead of him.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
I cannot see
I
any
can't
scenario.
See yeah.
Now, trading down and ended up with one of those guys, that's possible, I guess. If you're getting a haul of other guys, of other picks to move down a few spots. But I do wonder about the pressure that they will feel to take Jeremiah Love if they're at 4 and he's sitting there. If it goes Mendoza, Bailey, Reese in some order, and it's Love or
Styles.
How
much pressure is there to take Love? If you're
That
not
should
trading
be
down.
a lot. It may be a lot to take him if you're not trading down.
I think it's a lot of pressure. Cameron says, dude, if we draft Tate at 8, I'm out. Even if we draft Tate at 8, I'm out.
Tate at 8.
Tate at 8. We don't need another. We don't need another wide receiver 2 who we have to pretend is a wide receiver 1 for the next 3 years.
I think he has the potential to turn into a wide receiver 1. I think he ultimately will be that type of guy. But that's not drafting him that high at 4. No, just can't do it. Now with Jeremiah Smith, yeah, all day, every day, I draft him at 4. I draft him at 3, 2, and 1.
Well, I've heard this from, I believe it was friend of the show, Mike Herndon of PaulKuharsky.com, and Paul Kuharsky himself will join us in just a few moments. Herndon said that if the Titans don't take a receiver in the first or second round, so if they trade down, draft someone, or take someone at receiver with their pick at the top of the second round, then they should just skip on drafting a receiver altogether, because they've got enough of the guys who would go in the middle round, such as DK and Iamaner. So to me, if the Titans are going to draft a receiver, it would have to be a trade down scenario in the first round, or pick number 35, right? Top of the second round.
Yes.
I think beyond that, you just skip taking a receiver in this draft. Do you agree with that idea? Because by then, like if you draft a receiver in the 3rd or 4th rounds, aren't you just adding theoretically another Iamaner?
Yeah.
Or another DK?
Because you're not getting.
You never know.
If you're just basing it on how they're ranking them and whether the production or whatnot. Because again, you can draft this guy, he can come in and he end up being a number 1 wide receiver. We've seen that happen plenty of times. But when you're talking about Tyson, Tate, and Mekhi Lemon, after that, I think a bunch of these guys are sort of in the same space. And then the Titans, like you said, the Titans have slot guys. The Titans have bigger guys. They don't have that flat out number 1 guy. And as much as I like Tate, I like Tyson, but if this was Jeremiah Smith, yes, Yes, because he comes in automatically as your number one guy. We're not even discussing it. These other guys don't come in as your number one right off the bat.
Cameron, who just said, Tate at 8, I'm out. Cameron says, D. Mace angrily argued for years that Traylon Burks could develop into a wide receiver one in the face of all evidence to the contrary. This is exactly what I'm talking about. It's already starting, and we haven't even drafted Carnell
But
Tate.
you have a bias of the history of picking at that position. That does happen with some teams. I was just talking about the other day, the Giants' history of failed picks at the offensive line position.
Right, the Titans and wide receivers.
The Titans have that. The
Not
wide
so good,
receiver,
except for this guy.
You think of drafting a wide receiver, it's like, well, after Derek Mason, not a whole lot going on there. But you're not going to fix every hole in one draft. So I would keep that in the back of my mind. I know I'm going to have an incomplete team in 2026. I want the players that are going to get me to a playoff competitive level 2027 and beyond. I want to keep that in mind. It's not, hey, who do I need to? I have a hole here. I've got to get a guy at this position, and I pick a guy who's maybe graded lower. I want players. I want to keep that in mind. That's going to be my mantra.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the NFL draft. We're off a little bit earlier than usual today. So we'll wrap up the show coming up next with our friend Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. We'll ask Paul everything about the Titans. I'll also ask him, as a Yankees fan, if he believes in the curse of the Mambino. I don't know if Willie knows what I'm talking about, but we can explain coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We're off one segment early today ahead of Vanderbilt baseball. The Commodores take on Xavier at Hawkins Field. First pitch is at 6 o'clock. In just a few moments, we will be joined by Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com. But before we have Kuharsky on the program, I want to know if Willie believes in the curse of the Mambino. His beloved Mets have lost how many consecutive games?
11.
11.
Most since 2004.
And this losing streak coincides with a photo op with Mr. and Mrs. Met and New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Since that photo was published on April 9th, the Mets have not won a game. Do you believe, Willie Donick, in the curse of the Mambino? That's not a no.
That's not a
That's not a no.
No, but I do have my
No, but.
No, you don't believe.
I've got my concerns.
Okay.
First of all, can you imagine the people in the office? I'm thinking of like a, like a Veep scene. If you ever watch Veep or, one of those shows. Can you imagine the comedic possibilities of like, have the Mets won? No, they still haven't won. What? Like there's some person in the office going, they've got to win.
They're trying to do all
I'm
these
going to
things.
vote me out of office next week.
Oh my goodness.
Our constituency, they have to win.
Who else was in that picture?
It was just Mr. and Mrs. Met and the mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani.
Nobody was in the background?
Not that I'm aware.
Can't we blame it on anybody else?
Exactly.
Someone photobombing it. It wasn't me.
Exactly.
It was that person back there.
So what the Mets clearly need is the new version of the Grimace, which rescued their season a couple years ago. They can't bring the Grimace back. It just is
The hamburger.
It's not going to work.
How about the hamburger?
Maybe. I mean, it's got to be somebody like that.
Okay.
Maybe it does need to come from the family of the Grimace. Hamburglar is it's in the same family.
Can somebody call Mayor McCheese?
Mayor McCheese. That could be the guy to Mayor Mondani and
Mayor
Mayor McCheese.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Let's go
And
to
the
our-
next thing you know, Mayor McCheese would get some write-in votes for the actual mayor position. Can you imagine him coming up to the podium? I'm entering the race. The Mets came out of the hole. I'm your guy for the city.
Let's go to our phone line driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com and welcome in noted Yankees fan and Titans reporter Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com. Paul, before we get to the Titans, any words for Willie Donick wearing his Mets hat today?
I don't know. Did they win or did they lose?
They still haven't won. They still haven't won in a long time. It's not good.
How a shame has to be just
It's just
at an
terrible.
all-time heightened level.
But I've got my hat on,
You're
Paul. I
supposed to
stick with it.
automatically win. If you've got a lot of money, you're supposed to automatically win.
You said that very low,
Hey,
Willie.
the truth hurts. The truth hurts.
All right, Paul. The first round of the NFL draft, thankfully, is on Thursday. You know how it is at this time of the year. There are so many conflicting reports, so many smoke screens out there, but you know what you're talking about. So what is your sense of what the Titans are going to do at 48 hours out from the first round of the NFL draft?
Well, it's purely my sense, right? I'm not pretending to report anything. They've done a good job keeping a lid on things. I think if Arvell Reese or David Bailey is there, that they'll take him. I think their preference would be Bailey. I suspect those guys are going to be gone. I mean, this Arizona wanting Love thing has been too choreographed. Everybody's saying it all at the same time. Like, what, six different sources, 6 different outlets all came out with that in unison. It's like Monty Ossenfort sent out a text and said, hey, we're now leaning Love. So tell everybody. I don't know what that does for them exactly, because the presumption widely is that the Titans are going to take Love. So, sorry, there's some softball action going on here next to my baseball game. But, if they're saying they want Love, then they're saying what? You have to trade up to get Bailey or Reese, and then we're not going to take Love? I don't really understand what it does for them. I think if it's still Mendoza, Reese, and Bailey, or Bailey and Reese, that the Titans are in a position to choose between Love and Styles. I don't love the positional value, but I think Peter Schrager tweeted out
recently that he talked to a GM that said in this draft, throw positional value out the window. And if the Titans are in a position to do that, I think they take Jeremiah Love over Sonny Styles.
I was just going to ask you about that because Willie posed an interesting question earlier. Let's say the draft does play out that way and the Titans at number 4 have a choice between Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles. Is there any sort of, for lack of a better term, power struggle you could imagine between certain sides of the building, maybe even ownership, Love versus Styles? Because Love is the one that probably gets the butts out of the seats, but we know that Sonny Styles plays a position that Robert Saleh covets in his defense.
Well, I think Robert Saleh has gotten a lot of positions that he covets in free agency, and they certainly went harder there. And I wouldn't put running back. I mean, they've got a long, long list of needs, and running back isn't at the top of the list there either. But, you know, if you're being true to drafting the best player available, he probably is it, despite the positional value concerns. And they need to get Cam Ward some help. It's not the kind of wide receiver that you'd want there, or even at 8. I don't think Carnell Tate is going to be a true number 1, and that's what they need, is a true number 1. So even in a trade down, I don't know that that wide receiver would be the spot they'd wind up going. And so, you know, I'm sure that Robert Saleh likes Sonny Styles a lot, but I'm sure that he likes Jeremiah Love a lot too. You know, he needs his defense to stay off the field sometimes to get recharged. He's going to be rotating those defensive linemen a lot, and you know, if there are fewer snaps for them to rotate through, then you're going to see more Jeffrey Simmons and more Franklin Myers and more Johnson, and more maybe of whoever they draft in the 2nd or 3rd round at the other end spot. He'd rather not have 80 snaps to sort out, and Jeremiah Love could help them potentially be in that situation.
We'll talk with Paul Kuharsky. Catch his work on paulkuharsky.com. Now, Paul, do you get a sense outside of the first round with the Titans? Do you get a sense on, with talking with people over there, what direction they may tend to go heavy on after the first draft, the first round of the draft?
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear they're going to need 2 offensive linemen. They need contenders at right guard and center. I think it's pretty clear they need two defensive backs. I mean, Robert Saleh's made it clear he wants a nickel cornerback and he wants a nickel safety. And I don't think that you can go into camp thinking that Marcus Harris and thinking that Tony Adams are those 2 guys, certainly not without competition. And so I think, you know, you could use 4 picks at that alone. And so if you're taking Jeremiah Love in the first round, you know, you're kind of forcing some action. And I think something's going to go unaddressed then. And personally, and I'll write about this on draft day, I think it could be wide receiver because, you know, I think it accelerates your need still for that end spot, which is kind of open, that wide 9 end spot, unless they really like Jake Martin. But they're thin there and could really use a frontline guy. And I think you still maybe have a crack at one in the 2nd round. I don't know. And I don't know how the wide receivers come off the board, but they're pretty damn popular. And then if you're waiting until the 3rd or 4th round for a wide receiver, are you getting somebody that's significantly a notch better than DK or Io Manor? And if you're not, and if it's just another guy that's kind of at their same level, listen, I'm as impatient at wide receiver as anybody. I cannot stand the wait for a number 1 guy there. But if you're only drafted in the 3rd or 4th round there, you're not getting a number 1 guy necessarily. And something's going to have to wait if you're drafting 2 offensive linemen, 2 DBs, an edge rusher, a running back, and you know, they need a linebacker. They need so much. Something's going to wait.
Now, Dan Patrick came out with their potentially, he's hearing that the Titans will get a Super Bowl in 2030. Now, we knew once the stadium got approved and it was going up, we knew inevitably they would get a Super Bowl. Are you surprised they're getting it potentially this early? And when do you expect a announcement of it?
No, I reported this from the owners' meetings.
Uh-huh.
Once Vegas
Yes.
got the game in 2029, 2030 became the next open slot, and it's a very logical time for the Titans to have it. I think T-Pack will be done over there. They'll be kind of they can create a lull in construction before they do anything else over there, in what's going to be a total of a 10-year project, really, and it makes perfect sense. So I don't think there'll be anything official. I mean, they could draw it all the way out until the owners' meeting next spring, which I think has generally been the schedule. But it'll take a vote of the owners, and I think they need 24 of 32. So, we need to check the calendar for owners' meetings. There might not be another one until, I want to say December, but there's one in the spring. There may be one before the season starts. I'm not sure, but nobody's really talking about it with the city or with the Titans right now. But it was pretty much a foregone conclusion anyway. And then, when that date rolls around, I have no doubt that the city and the team will crush it. What we need is not to have an ice storm that shuts down the better part of the city.
i.e.
For a
Atlanta.
week, because they've not been back. Well, they've been back to Atlanta, but they haven't been back to Dallas.
Now, with that being said, once it is announced, and it will be sooner or later, do you think that opens the floodgates for everything else? Meaning, wrestling and the Final Four, and ultimately, obviously, the being a part of the college football playoffs.
Yeah, well, I think WrestleMania is all but said. They're in, and I think that'll probably be. I'm anticipating it'll be like the first giant event in there after Titans season. I think the floodgates will be wide open on all of that stuff. Holding it for that to be the first big event, because the Titans will be in there for already 3 full seasons, 27, 28, 29. So that'd be a long wait. So I don't think they'd hesitate to hold something big there before then. And I think the Titans, while they were probably certainly disappointed they didn't get 29, I think that the fact that Las Vegas got it in a 5-year cycle and SoFi had gotten it in a 5-year cycle, I wrote this, if it goes well in Nashville, which everybody expects it to do, I think Nashville thinks it'll get in a 5 or 6 year cycle. And some of these other stadiums, Tampa Bay, Miami, will have to really, at New Orleans, will have to really up their game in terms of modern amenities to keep up with the Joneses now of places like Nissan Stadium, Allegiant Stadium, SoFi Stadium, in order to draw the league back on as regular a basis based on the amenities and in the case of Vegas and Nashville, the footprint.
Paul Kuharsky is with us. Paul, do you think it's plausible at any point that Amy Adams comes in there at all behind the scenes in her own way, whether it's directly or through somebody else, to say, boy, the idea of Cam Ward and Jeremiyah Love in the same backfield, that really sounds great to me. Man, can you think about the possibilities of the ticket sales, and it's Eddie George and Steve McGarrett? Do you think any of that could take place to influence people?
I don't think Titans ownership has ever really told management to draft somebody outside of VY as my guy. I really don't. And while she might like that idea, I think she is very much in a phase now of, and Albert Breer's been big on this, saying that she reads and hears what we're saying, and she's sick of getting crapped on. And she doesn't want and I believe this, that she doesn't want to be at blame for whatever. If Robert Saleh doesn't pan out, she wants that on Mike Borgonzi. And if Mike Borgonzi doesn't pan out, I think she'd go so far, we could go far enough back to say that she wants that on Chad Brinker. And if Jeremiyah Love doesn't pan out, or whoever the pick is at 4, she wants that on Mike Borgonzi.
All right.
I
Yes,
think
sir.
she's very interested in the blame for anything that goes wrong going forward, not being on her.
All right. Short answer. Will Levis, do they trade him during this draft?
I don't know if they trade him during this draft or if it comes later, but I think people are way overestimating what they get for Will Levis. People think they're getting a 6th-round pick for Will Levis. I think they're getting a 30-spot increase for Will Levis.
Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com has been our guest on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. Of course, you can hear him tomorrow morning with Robbie and Rexroad. Paul, as always, a pleasure. Enjoy the NFL draft. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, boys. Ravenwood beats. Who are we playing here? Nolansville, the big rivalry. Ravenwood, JB.
That's Rex Road.
Nolan.
That's Rex Road squad, right? Nolansville?
Yeah, Rex Road. They can't handle our JB, I'll tell you that.
Thanks, Paul. Oh, boy. 6-1. Oh, nope.
Something else they gotta.
Not giving
go
out
at
the
it with
number
each other.
because the show is over.
Yes, it is.
Vanderbilt baseball is coming up next. We will be back tomorrow at 3:00. We've got a fun show planned. Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, MMQB, will join the program. We'll talk to him about the NFL draft. He also wrote a fabulous feature for the magazine on Jeremiyah Love. So we will talk to him about that as well. We'll get back into what we heard from the Predators yesterday, and we'll look ahead to the NFL draft. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3:00.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music. Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. See you tomorrow. You better be listening tomorrow, starting at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Peace.